Welcome into your Brave Spring Training Special. I'm Sports Director at Atlanta News First, Bailey Burmaster, joined alongside sports reporter Connor Hines, and we have quite a show built for you. It's Brave season. It's officially here. Can you believe it?
Can't wait. It came up on us pretty fast. It's a long season, but I'm glad it's here. Spring training is here. So much good stuff that came out of last week down in Northport with you. And just excited to get it going.
So what can you expect from this program? We're going to break down what Braves on Gray really is in this partnership and where you can view these games that are coming across our airwaves here. We're going to talk about some of the biggest storylines from spring training, whether that's the injuries from 2024 and so on. We're going to tell you everything you need to know. But let's start with, what is Gray Media? What is Braves on Gray? Well, the Atlanta Braves and Gray Media have agreed to a multi-year partnership starting in 2025 for Gray to simulcast 15 regular season games alongside FanDuel Sports Network and the Braves right holder partner. The 15 regular season games will be spread across the season and selected games will be announced. We have that list for you and we will share it here. But this is the demographic of where these games will be aired. They're not just here in Atlanta. They are all over Braves country. So take a look at this map. Are you in this area? That means you can watch these games. Gray will also exclusively produce and air 10 spring training games. That's why we are here right now and what we want to give you more of. So here's a list of those 10 spring training games that you can peek at. Starting on February 27th against the Nationals, that game is in West Palm. Obviously, the yellow ones are away. We will have boots on the ground there. Our Aaron Ladd will be alongside Elijah Collins, our photographer, getting you all the content. We'll let you know who is starting that game before they get down there. The deal will increase the reach of selected games, providing a new way to watch Braves baseball for more than 15 million households. Gray will carry the Braves in 24 markets across 6 states of the Braves' home television territory, one of the largest in professional sports, and it allows more fans to watch more than ever before. Gray Media is our partner company, which is a leading media company nationwide. So that is why it's Braves on Gray. So let's chat about those 10 spring training games. I want to pop those back up real quick so you can see, take a picture of it, because this is really exciting. They're exclusively here. You can watch them on Peachtree TV. You're going to be able to see all the rising stars. Connor, who are some of these people you're going to be watching in these games?
Oh my gosh, let's start with
Your favorite?
opener for the first game of the season. Obviously, Chris Sale, the reigning Cy Young Award winner, but Drake Baldwin especially. What a breakout year he had in AAA. Excited to see how he progresses, not only through spring training, but when he gets the call to the big league club. He's just one example of so many guys who we've got our eyes on as we go along.
There's a lot of guys with the Gwinnett Stripers who always pop out. We always go down there and we're able to talk to Bryce Elder, AJ Smith-Shawver, who's another young arm that they feel a lot of promise in. So lots of excitement. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Me, myself, and Lee Smith spent a week in Northport. Aaron was locked in. Connor was locked in. And there were a lot of storylines we were paying attention to during that week. Let's debrief the ones we're going to cover for you shortly. The hot topics of 2024 injuries, the lack of moves when you have teams like the Dodgers who seem to just be spending so much money. Spencer Strider, we got to see back in action. We're catching up with Ronald Acuña Jr. on his rehab. And maybe one of the most intriguing aspects of this team, the bullpen. But let's start with the injuries. Connor, I'll ask you, no one is shying away from how detrimental the injuries were. Who were the biggest losses last year that I think just kind of snowballed until the end of the season? Because a lot of players did say it was a miracle that they even made the playoffs.
Yeah, where do you begin, right? The list goes on. Truly like an unprecedented year in terms of injuries for the Braves. You got to start with the guys who are still not going to be quite ready for this opening day, that being Ronald Acuña Jr. and Spencer Strider. We'll see how they progress moving forward. But you name it. Michael Harris II, he was a crucial part of the outfield. Sean Murphy, obviously your starting catcher for a lot of last year. So totally unprecedented. And yes, this was one of the rare instances where you could actually blame some of the Braves, shortcomings on injuries because there were just so many. Matt Olson, Bailey, the only major leaguer on this Braves roster to have played every game of the last 3 seasons. I saw that stat earlier today. That just goes to show how decimated the roster was last year. I don't think you can really plan for that ever. And you certainly can't plan for that again. And a lot of these guys that were talking to you last week in Northport, they said, look, to a certain extent, it's really just unavoidable. It was really just bad luck. So certainly going to be refreshing to see those guys back on the field sooner rather than later.
Let's hear from Matt Olson and Austin Riley about those injuries and now getting a clean slate for 2025.
It's always going to be a part of seasons. Injuries, I think you have to do what you can in the middle of it to move on and have that next guy up. We got a lot of good contributions from the guys that came in, like Gio and Witt, and Holmesy coming in, stepping in, eating some big innings. But to be able to get the guys that were there to start the year back, see them in the lineup, see them on the mound is big.
Early on, started getting it going, and had the oblique, and then kind of had to revamp it and get it back going, and then felt like I was finally started feeling good at the plate, and then obviously the hand happened. So I think a lot of guys would say it was an uphill battle the whole year, and like I said, with the injuries, but it's part of it. Nobody felt sorry for us, and we gave ourselves a chance. Like I said, we made the playoffs, and that's all you can ask for. And obviously it didn't work out, but it was 2024 was a weird year.
Something that was an interesting note as well, because of all the injuries, it really impacted the lineup. And Alex Anthopoulos, I mean, he told us straight up, every player but Marcell Ozuna had a down year in hitting. And when it comes to that, there's a big reason they went out and got Tim Hires, really good reputation, bringing him in. They're hoping they stay healthy and that they can get this thing back in groove. Part of that is going to be Spencer Strider, and what an interesting man he is, Connor. He's very intellectual, he's very talkative about things, but we did get to see him throw some live bullpen situations, and my favorite part about it is everyone stopped what they were doing to watch him. When he was throwing his bullpen session, I think we counted 7 players coming over to watch him, whether it was Waldrip, Grant Holmes. Everyone wanted to know what the latest was. So it was interesting to see him in the middle of things. And he wears this band too, which helps measure the torque and workload. There you see it there, all the players watching. And he said they might just be bored.
They might just be bored. Yeah, that's a very Spencer Strider response. Clearly, the engine that makes this pitching staff go, and yes, they're going to need him back sooner rather than later. Still throwing that curveball extremely well, even with that UCL tear. So yeah, hopefully he just continues to progress back.
He will pitch. The goal is to have him pitch in spring training games. We will see if that actually happens. For both him and Ronald Acuña, no one wanted to give a timetable because they don't want to rush it. And if it doesn't happen, then if you have a setback, they don't want to get into that limbo. But the goal is to have him pitch in some spring training games. But he was asked, what was the mental strain on this injury and how did it affect you? And what did you learn about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. I think just, I keep saying it, but the process is what I love ultimately. I think, there's talk about like mastering a craft or something. People talk about 10,000 hours. Mastery is something that doesn't really have a destination. It's hard to define it. So you don't really know when it happens. You just know that somebody's a master at something. So I'm not calling myself a master, but I think that's what I've kind of been able to focus in on is there were no outcomes to define myself. That identity, that ego was not fed by anything on the field. So you're spending a lot of time with yourself. Delayed gratification is absolutely the main component of a rehab process. So just trying to find ways to get better and ultimately enjoy that progress and that learning process.
He is not the only one that they are hoping gets healthy and stays healthy. The other is Ronald Acuña Jr., who is coming back from his second ACL tear. And boy, do they need him back in the lineup in the worst way, Connor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just saw not just how the lineup itself was impacted on the field, but just from a team morale perspective when Ronald went down. I mean, he's another guy, much like Strider. The team goes as he does, and I think now with the second ACL tear, kind of in the rearview mirror, this is a guy who's a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Yeah, he's going to be taking it a little easier, as he said to you guys down there at spring training, but I think that's also for the better.
He will not play in any spring training games. Alex Anthopoulos, the Braves general manager, did say that he might DH on some of the other fields in the minor league games, but he will not play in any of these games. And there's no timetable for him. Acuna was asked, the timetable could be May. How do you feel about that when you hear it could be May before you returned? And he just said, oh, and he rubbed his face and was very concerned. But with that said, he seems to be in good spirits. He says he's running 95%. I will let you hear from him and hear how good his English has really improved and how long he's come, because we might be talking to him in the clubhouse a lot more.
Yeah, no doubt.
I feel great, finally. I know how much work I put into myself to be here again. And I'm here to, whatever they need me, help my team, and play hard no matter what happens.
What percent are you able to run at or hit at?
Now, I'm running fast, maybe 95%. I feel great. That's the priority.
Are you going to do your interviews in English this year? Is that what
Yeah. Franco, he loves the job.
You have any restrictions? Like, how do you feel out there physically?
No, I don't think so, but the priority is I feel great. That's the most important thing. And when they tell me you need to play that day, I'll be there.
So health is wealth in 2025. That's the motto they're all running by. We'll see if they can stick to it. Now, something the fans were really peeved about, Connor, was the lack of spending in the offseason. Everyone really thought that they were going to go get another starting arm because they felt like that's really what they needed with losing innings with Max Fried and Charlie Morton. You also lost some bullpen guys with AJ Minter joining the Mets. That one hurt fans a little bit. But were you surprised by the lack of spending? I mean, it's Alex Anthopoulos, and let's give him some credit. He makes really good, smart moves. I want to rewind a year ago when he got Chris Sale, and everyone was like, what a terrible idea.
Right.
We don't like this. And then he won a Cy Young,
Right.
and he stayed healthy, and it was a new opportunity. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, I think in AA you got to trust, right? And I think as soon as that last, or should I say first month after the end of the season kind of passed, you kind of had a feeling the Braves were going to be quiet. Alex Anthopoulos historically, doing a lot of his homework, doing a bulk of that front office work in the months right after the end of the season. He didn't do that this past offseason. So you had a feeling it was going to be a quiet offseason. A lot of speculation about, are the Braves trying to cut costs? What's the financial, implication there? I don't think it matters because I think, you got one of the best, if not the best general manager in baseball. And at the end of the day, they did make moves. They just made smart moves, as he always does. So not overly concerning. And at the end of the day, this is still a top 3, top 5 lineup in baseball, in my opinion. So you got to trust the process there.
And let's listen to Alex Anthopoulos because his answer as to why they did not spin, one, the first half of it makes a lot of sense with where their roster is, but two, pay attention to the names he mentions as who they feel is promising, and that was maybe a reason they feel like they didn't need to spend money.
We've spent a lot on our own players, right? So we've made a lot of commitment. I think I haven't looked at it in the last few years. So, but I think we have the most probably long-term contracts of the majority of teams. You start looking around the roster, not necessarily in the rotation, but we have long-term contracts all over the place. So even still, we didn't have that many holes. Now we've lost free agents, no doubt about it, but we have some people we're going to give opportunities to. Strider and Fried are not the same, but we lost Strider for last year. We had the best ERA in the game, and we lost Fried now, but Strider comes back. We lose Charlie Morton. Can Grant Holmes take that opportunity and be that guy? We think he's certainly got a chance to do that. From an offensive standpoint, we lost Ronald, and we think getting him back is going to be big as well. So Joe Jimenez is the one loss that we haven't been able to account for. We're hoping guys like Daysbel Hernandez can certainly take a step, but we'll see how with the other guys we have in camp. So we won 89 games a year ago with a lot of things going wrong. And look, the other thing is with the position players we have, a lot of them had for their careers down years. Really, other than Ozuna, everyone took a bit of a step back. So they're still young, they're still elite, talented players. There's upside for them to be better than that. So we explored all kinds of things, signings, trades, things like that. But again, we have our payrolls in the top 10. We have a lot of commitments already, and we're going to be much more selective in things that we do.
So it makes a lot of sense. He basically says that for the roster, they have a lot of guys that they're paying on the payroll right now that are worth it. And I don't disagree with him. I think the other aspect of that too is if you saw there, he mentioned Grant Holmes specifically, and that was not the only time he mentioned Grant Holmes out of pocket, so to say. He was asked about Ian Anderson, but no one asked him about Grant Holmes, and he brought him up twice. So it was interesting to note that maybe they actually really believe in him.
Yeah, and I think they have, much, they have for a really long time. And Grant Holmes is one of those guys who, like, you can just tell by talking to him, he wants to be a Brave. He's fortunate to have this opportunity, and it's a guy they see a future in. The Braves are obviously known for developing players even after they make their big league break. So again, to recircle back, I mean, this is a general manager who does not make a move without strategy behind it. And I don't think anything about this offseason was any different.
No. But there is intrigue with who might fill that fifth spot. We will dabble in that in a second. But what we really want to talk about are the opportunities in the bullpen, because there were two things I found very, very interesting the entire week we were there. And it was that manager Bryant Snickert and general manager Alex Anthopoulos both discussed the bullpen when talking about intrigue and opportunities of players that could really make a difference and where they might see the most moves. And one of those guys is Perdomo, who was with the Pirates not too long ago. This tall specimen you see right in the middle. He can really throw it. He's coming back from Tommy John, and they really think there's someone who they can help bring along and be a guy that they go to in the bullpen. But let's hear about those opportunities and what Alex Anthopoulos had to
I think
say.
the most opportunity we have is in the bullpen. I think it's there's just a lot of we have a lot of guys that are coming in and competing for a job. So, and look, I think that's a place you might see us churn a little bit even during the year. So we've had years where we've had guys on guaranteed contracts and not a lot of room, and that's the group we were going to go with. The group that we start with, there's a chance that you see that evolve over time and over the course of the season. So that's probably the one place I'd say there's the most opportunity for the guys in camp.
So we will see. Obviously, it's a long spring training, things just getting underway. The first spring training game Saturday, and then you can also join us for the 10 exclusively on our air. But before we wrap up here talking about Brave Springs training, let's go into some questions and let's dabble into what could be in 2025. Let's start with, who do you believe will take the fifth spot in the rotation? Connor, I'll let you go first.
I think it's got to be Grant Holmes. I mean, 70 strikeouts in 68 innings. He had a 3.56 ERA, but again, back to what we were saying already, I think this is a guy who's very familiar with the Braves organization, kind of had that first year to kind of get under his belt. And I think confidence is such a big thing, not in all sports, but especially baseball. And I think that's something that Grant Holmes has now, and that's something that he can build on now. Look, there are many candidates. A.J. Smith-Shawver is a candidate. Ian Anderson is a candidate. Huge part of that 2021 World Series team. Of course, he's going to get a shot as well. I think Grant Holmes emerges as the guy, but I think we're also going to get a chance to see all of those guys kind of get their shot in that spot because, again, this is a long season and a feeling out process as well.
We did not discuss what each of us were choosing. I'm going with Holmes as well, but I have a few other takes on why it's Holmes. First off, I saw him throw a bullpen session. The man looked crispy. He was throwing it, and he just looked like he had settled in a lot more. And I think that a lot of that comes with the situations they put him in last year. Specifically, you think about the closing game of the year against the Mets, where he found out like 5 minutes before the game that he was actually starting and goes out there and delivers. Not anyone can do that. I'm also here for the storylines. I mean, this guy has been in the minors for so long, 10 years. And he even said, sometimes it takes guys. He was talking about the young guys with the good arms coming up. And he was like, listen, sometimes it takes a year or two. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. Look at me. I think he's ready to grow in that role. And I think when your team believes in you and they give you the opportunities to back it up, it gives you a lot more room to go out there and do what you need to do. So I am eager to see if he can become that fifth guy in the rotation. All right, next. What are your expectations for Ronald Acuña Jr. this season, Connor?
I think everyone can expect maybe a little less flashiness from him. I mean, he said it himself. Yeah, I'm going to take it easier on the bases. That's why he tore his ACL for the second time. But as far as like at the plate goes and statistics go, expect the same old Ronald Acuña Jr. I mean, 30 home run, 80 RBI season. Don't be surprised by it. I think this is a guy who is as confident as ever at the plate, and he's going to pick up right where he left off. That's kind of the kind of beauty in disguise about tearing an ACL, right? Is that, yeah, it affects your approach at the plate a little bit, but not as a shoulder or an elbow would. So I think we're going to see a lot of the same from Acuna, and frankly, we kind of have to. It would be great to see him get back to his 2021 2022 form, and I think you got to expect that.
I think that's the high bar. I think the bare minimum is what we saw last year before he tore his ACL. And Alex Anthopoulos kind of said that a little bit in his press conference of, hey, we don't want to rush him back. They've been in situations where do you want to get him back quick or do what do you do there? And they don't want to rush it. They want him to be fully healthy and not put him in any situations. He says he feels really good. But I think the bar is just doing what he was able to do last year before tearing his ACL.
Yeah.
I do not believe if he will take it easier on the bases. I don't think he's going to be stealing like as much, but I do believe they will still be aggressive when they need to be.
Yeah.
When it's a situation where they absolutely need to get there, they're going to let him go. And I just don't think Acuna is really a guy you can reel in, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I do hope he returns earlier than May. That is what I hope. Okay,
No doubt.
to wrap up with the final question, what are your 2025 predictions for the Braves?
Okay, got a few here.
Okay, I don't have that many, so go for it.
Number one being, I think the Braves win the NL East again at the end of the day. This is a roster that's too good, too well-rounded, in a lineup. If it stays healthy, it's one of the best in baseball, no doubt about it. I think division title, again, is kind of the baseline for this team, and then you see where you can go from there. I mean, they were not shy about saying.
I think that's very fair.
Last year was not Braves baseball. I mean,
No.
so many ways.
But we do have to talk about the blanketed statements. AJ Minter no longer here, and everyone probably happy in the sense where he's not saying World Series or bust because
Right.
we kept asking and everyone jokingly was like, we're not saying blanketed statements this year. We're not doing it, which obviously you play the game to make it to a World Series. Like, let's pump the brakes. But no one wants to jinx it or put it out there. Everyone knows these baseball players are super superstitious. But a lot of people did say they just want to be healthy. So health is wealth in 2025. But I do agree with you, the division title.
I think that's got to be the baseline because that's been the baseline for the Braves for so long. And then my other kind of low-hanging fruit prediction, Drake Baldwin, he's going to make the show at some point. It's just a matter of when. You had a great piece on the catchers last week at spring training. That's a position that's kind of in flux for Atlanta right now, and it's a position where Drake Baldwin can easily make the show. Promoted to AAA middle of last year, tore it up, 298 average, 12 homers. He's also just such a well-spoken guy. He's only 24 years old, but he acts like he's 34. I mean, it's really impressive to hear from him as well.
And he can hit the ball.
Yeah.
He can annihilate the ball. I get worried, and I don't want this to be my prediction because I do want him to make it to the show with the Braves, but I could see him packaging him in a deal for maybe another arm.
Remember what happened in 2020?
I don't want to talk about it. It makes me really sad because he is such a sweet guy. I should tell the funny story about Chadwick Tromp. So the first time he ever picked up golf clubs, he was with Drake and all the guys at spring training. He's not a big golfer. He now is a golfer, but he took a golf club and was like pretending to swing like most men do. And he did it on cement. And when he did it, he dragged it against the cement and it sparked. So they call him Sparky now.
Good.
So just a fun little story we got out of spring training if you were curious.
Love it.
But yeah, I could see them packaging Drake because someone will want a catcher like that. And it's, Trump is great. Murphy, if he's healthy, is effective. But I do want to see Drake in a Braves uniform in the show. I think that would be great. For me, maybe I'm sipping the Kool-Aid. I did with this with the Falcons and I, definitely paid the price. But I think they win the NLDS this year. And I don't know who it's going to be. I'm not going to say the Phillies because I don't want to write the storylines themselves. But I think they finally get out of that, head to the NLCS, and restore to greatness a little bit. I think this city and all the Braves country is just dying to see this team be so superior. And you can feel it within this team and this roster. Just last year was so unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, again, to not to beat a dead horse, but I mean, last year was such an anomaly for the historically super high expectations that this team has and expectations that this team regularly meets. So I'm with you, and I think it's kind of, in a weird way, kind of been like a monkey to get off the back now. Get out of the NLDS, right? It's
Yeah.
such a weird thing to say for the Braves of all teams, but
Well, and lucky for all the viewers and fans of the Braves, you can watch them right here with us on Peachtree TV and Peachtree Sports Network. Let's pop up the map one more time, the Braves country map, so everyone can see where these 10 spring training games and the 15 regular season games will be all over this map, whether you're in South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, you got it, you can see it. And don't forget, so take a picture of that because you want to make sure you're in these areas, but also take a picture of the 10 spring training games exclusively on our air. So those are games you're going to want to tune into starting on February 27th against the Nationals. There's also the Rising Prospects game against the Tigers, which is in Northport on
yeah,
March
it's gonna be
15th.
fun.
That's going to be a really fun game. So we have a lot of fun things coming for you. And then all you have to do is wait until the regular season, and you can also join us for 15 regular season games. That will do it for your Brave Spring Training special. For Connor Hines, I am Bailey Burmaster. Have a great night.